country, because this is purely based on ethnicity. I've had all the protestations. I mean, I've been following this thing for a while now. JZ's candidacy is built on ethnicity. And it started way back at Polokwane, for instance. You had folks from KZN singing Indlamu at Polokwane, embarrassing KZN leaders. They had to be told, right? His campaign, 100% Zulu boy, and the entire KZN leaders, for instance, would go around supporting JZ, saying it's now time to elect a Zulu person. And that's what they did with the ANC.
So let's first define what democracy is, and then I'll tell you why I don't like it. So democracy, it's meant to be a system where it's a government that is chosen by the people, so that is at its best interest, it works for these people. Because then it will create a government for the same people. So technically speaking, so in theory, that is what democracy is. And you would see capitalist countries will go around all over the world to say, hey, you ISIS, hey, you Islamic State, you're not practicing democracy. Take this democracy. Muammar Gaddafi, this thing is not working. We'll do some the cricket nyana there. I'm avoiding those big words. The cricket nyana there, boom, boom, boom. And then we take the stuff that we wanted to take, we leave, we say, work with this democracy. And we have seen that it doesn't work. So, and that's very dangerous, of course. And this is why a lot of people do not love the Americans, because they're the big brothers. They sell democracy to people who say, I don't want it, but they force democracy down our throats. I've never been a Democrat. I don't like democracy. I live in it and I practice it because I have no choice. So that's clear. I don't like democracy. So let's talk about South African democracy. And of course, the freedom. During struggle, they spoke about democracy. They want democracy because they want to choose their own government. Of course, naive. Our naivety had to do with, because we thought freedom and democracy is the same thing. We are battling with a lot of examples of freedom now. But not to dwell too much. What Professor Ndletyana is saying is that when Zulu people choose to vote for someone because that someone is Zulu. So if you are new to the podcast, first start by subscribing. I just supported an African man before you even hear what he says. I've said a lot on this podcast that Zulu people must stop being ashamed, must stop feeling otherwise for supporting Jacob Zuma because he's Zulu. There's nothing wrong with it. That is what democracy is. So what would that be wrong is if you do other things that are illegal. See, that is another matter. But what is right is if Zulu people says, guys, we are now voting for Oppenheimer. I know you won't do it, guys. I'm just saying. We are now voting for Oppenheimer. So if they vote for Oppenheimer, that is, in theory, democracy. That's what democracy is. A government by the people for the people. Because this is how the people want it. Now, let's talk IEC. So the Independent Electoral... okay, let me leave it there because people are using the C for the corrupt thing. Has given people a process where they are not happy. Don't confuse things. Let me repeat. It has given people an electoral process, an election that people are not happy. We could calculate majority. It's very difficult because, you use democratic processes to gauge if democracy works. So it's almost like you are putting a cop to IP, a cop to a cop to help you. But here's the thing. it's very difficult to gauge how many people love these elections or not. I went out, I went to the streets. I've recorded a lot of happiness. I've recorded, of course, ANC and DA would mostly be happy because they're the second, the big two. But so all I'm trying to say is Zulu people have a right to choose a government that they want. A government that they want. And if they are not happy with the government that they want, what is wrong with us? We created Orania. When I say I'm talking about Thabo Mbeki and others. They created Orania. Zulu people wanted to create their own Orania. And they couldn't. I've said a lot on this podcast. I do not agree with separating things. In fact, we should rather be working on annexing Lesotho and Swaziland. Yes, there are big words when I say annex. We just take it over because we are tired of begging people who are going to ask their masters who are not even African if we should combine as Africa. Because it's better for me for Africans to unite. We grow gradually than to divide. But if people are not happy, it's also democracy for them to live alone. Western Cape wanted to do it. Orania has done it, so others say successfully. I doubt if it's successful because they live in their own country. That is illegal. You know, Orania, and I hear a lot of people go, Orania is an illegal setup. So Orania, they are in South Africa because they are voting in our own elections. But to live there, you need to apply from white people who approve you to live there. It's a corruption in itself. But because they are white people, it's allowed to proceed. And I've heard a lot of people, I've listened to a lot of podcasts justifying Orania and people clapping hands. I mean, Orania is an example of ANC failure. Show me Orania. If it's not ANC failure, show me Orania in Europe. You can't, because that's why I was saying with Western Cape, what they're trying to do, those whites, how it won't work. But since I'm there, let me talk about the problems of having KwaZulu. This is what is going to happen because we want them to have what they want. But after they have what they want, these are the likely problems that we're going to face as Africans if they live there in KwaZulu. So the reason white people are reluctant to form that Cape Town government is because all their riches are done in South Africa. They are mining their riches in South Africa. All those billionaires and millionaires, dollar millionaires and billionaires in Cape Town, they get their riches in South Africa. And the problem is, once they do it, it is only fair for our government to say, leave our things alone, and they are not going. Remember, before 94, what these people were getting, so the ANC negotiated us. So let me give it a simple example with social media. What Mark Zuckerberg sells to advertisers, they sell us our accounts on social media. He says, look, I've got 1 billion people. Twitter, Instagram is the same thing. These are the people that I have. Pay me based on these people. That is what the ANC did. The ANC sold us to the capitalists to say, if you open a supermarket here, this is what you get. This is what you get. They negotiated with us being the collateral. It's not nice history, but it's the truth. All these things that we could not access before 94, that we could now access. We're talking about bonds. We're talking about education plans. It only enriched white people, and this is what they sold us. There are markets that you cannot tap. Your Time Bank, your Capitec Bank, those things did not exist. So our existence and flown into this economy only empowered them. That's why I was telling Bianca the other day that we, unfortunately, we are more were more betrayed by the system, the ANC government, than any other person. But being there as it may, let me just park it for there. Just know that the ANC negotiated with us being on their table. So we were the leverage they negotiated the power with, because they opened the market for these people to start showing when Fanzel Slabet went to fetch them from exile. It's us who they negotiated with. They showed them the business plan that these are the billions you are going to make. And indeed, the investment matured. These people have become much richer than they were before democracy. Let's get back to KwaZulu. So what it would mean is everyone who is Zulu would then have to go to Natal. Everyone who is not Zulu from Natal, they will have to come this side. It gives us what problem? The same problem that we are having in Zimbabwe. If South Africans now in Mpumalanga need to go there, then they are going to be treated otherwise. And if they come this side, we will have to treat them otherwise. But we lived with each other so intertwined, so peacefully for a long time that it's not even feasible. But we allowed the Boers to do it. You understand? So if Zulu people want to do it, what's wrong with allowing them to do it? I know the problems, like I'm stating the problems, but what's wrong with doing it? So if you listen to Professor Ndletyana, what he's saying is it's dangerous what Zulus are doing, the current Zulus who are threatening this, because he labels them as Zulus. Well, if you are going to kill people based on them not being Zulu, well, that's tribalism. But if you support someone based on them being Zulu, that's your preference. That is your preference. There was a time in South Africa, they called it the Xhosa Nostra, where the ANC was dominated by Xhosas. And we act like we don't remember. We act like we don't remember. We remember. They call it the Xhosa Nostra. They were everywhere. We know that history. It existed. I saw a content creator speaking about the way we are going. Then we are going to go to I don't know what to call them, Bantustans, those conclaves that I hate a lot, because she was talking about if Zulu people vote for Umsholuzi and the Xhosas vote for ANC, then maybe other tribes must as well create their own thing. It's not gonna work. So why can't people just be dispersed? Practically, it's not possible. But this person was just casting aspersions on the fact that if people are gonna vote for someone based on that thing, I want to repeat: if they choose to do that, that is democracy. The same democracy that you guys say you want. But it's not democracy. Even if we know democracy is evil, but someone has conditioned you to praise democracy, even if it doesn't work for you. As we speak, I spoke a lot of MK guys who are here on the channel, who are watching me. Them and me, we fight a lot. But it's a democratic choice for them to choose who they want. If they want to choose from Sholozi, let it be. Why do you want to stop them from doing it? Because you say you support democracy. Why? Because it's only tribalism. It's only tribalism when it's done by people that you don't like. You know what Malema labeled it, and I think he was spot on. He said Jacob Zuma borrowed him those 300,000 votes that he got in 2019. That is 10%. 9 point something, 10% of KwaZulu-Natal. He was very sad. I mean, it pains me when Julius Malema says it. But those people, and I've said it many times on this podcast, I've said with a lot of people, I don't want to, but if they give me permission one day, I'm going to tell them. But you have seen them on studio, and we spoke to them. Off camera, they did tell me that only one came out to confess in camera to say they were obviously going to vote for Juju, EFF, but now they've moved to Msholuzi, now that they've got an option. These people are proud Amazulu. They are proud Zulu people, and they wanted to vote for someone who who represents their interest. You see why the arrival of colonialists have disturbed the, I don't know what to call it, disturbed the integration of all tribes in South Africa to become one tribe. Maybe it would have been a nation like Botswana, Swaziland, and Lesotho. Because now we see each other as tribes instead of seeing each other as same people. The president of Botswana, when he addresses, he says Botswana. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying countries who are nations, they are not prone to violence and toppling of government, but I'm just saying that is. So I've made this video long because of the issues that I'm discussing. I think they're important, so you understand what I'm saying, so you don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't like democracy, and I've told you why I don't like it. But if you say you like democracy, but you don't like when Zulu people vote for their own president, for their own preferred choice, then you also don't like democracy. So if kids are playing, let's talk about high school. You find kids playing sports. They would naturally, and I emphasize the word naturally, they will naturally gravitate towards their own race because they relate better with people of the same race, and they would camp there. But the more kids live in the same kind of setup, they relate on other things besides the race, then they intertwine. If I'm Pedi, and a lot of my friends are Pedi, and if I know an engineer, one of my best engineers is a Pedi guy. You understand? So I just want to tell you that sometimes we'll incorrectly label things, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying them voting for Zuma has nothing to do with tribalism. Maybe there are people who are voting for him because of tribalism, but it's a preferred choice, and by definition, that's why when I started the podcast, I started it with, let's define what democracy is. It's a choice that people have of building their own government, and AmaZulu very proudly chose to elect a government that represents them, and we have denied them an opportunity. If it's true that IEC has manhandled this, they could not deliver a fair, according to them, a fair process. Remember, it doesn't matter if it's true that IEC, because some things must be seen to be true, because democracy works on majority. The majority will rule. If 60% of South Africans say this democracy, this IEC is not working, shouldn't they change it? Polokwane people came back and changed. They changed the Scorpions. Even before they could go further, they changed the Scorpions because they were not happy with the Scorpions. It's the decision taken by 4,000 delegates to come back to South Africa from their conference in Polokwane to come back and change something that they agreed on. Other things like labor brokering, I've already spoken about. They did not touch because it wasn't important for them. But other mandates, they took care of it. They changed it because that's what they want. So now, I'm just asking, if people do not like the IEC and they want to change the IEC, isn't that democracy? Because we must be careful what we say. So we can't clap hands for another side of democracy and want to shun other people for pointing out that theirs is also a democratic right, because they have a democratic right of choosing a Zulu person. Yeah, they just chose him because he's Zulu. Yes. But, the reason I keep telling MK guys that stop justifying and stop. If people say, it's because he's Zulu, because he did not, it's because then they're going to ask you, why did you choose him? Just say, yes, we chose him because he's Zulu. It's a right for them to choose him because he's Zulu. That's what they want. It's what they want. It's their democratic right to choose someone who's Zulu. So if a Zulu person has had bad experiences with an Afrikaans boss, a good experience with a Zulu boss, do you blame the person for choosing the next boss if they could elect the next boss to be Zulu? No. It's the same thing if Amashangan, I spoke a lot about Amashangan and the bad treatment they get from people who speak Zulu. On this podcast, I said the word Umshangani, we had that it's in bad taste when we hear it being spoken in negative terms, and it's mostly spoken by Nguni people and in particular Zulus, because it's so difficult for Amashangani to an extent that most of them, even those that recognize themselves as Shangan, then gravitate to not being called that. You understand? But being there as it may, it's a long podcast, but I want you to listen to the full Professor Ndletyana's, what do I even call it? Professor Ndletyana's speech, particularly around Jacob Zuma and his support from Zulu people. Thank you very much. If you got it, you listened to this far, man, just subscribe and share it with other people. I'm very thankful that as South Africans we are proving a lot of people wrong. We can disagree without fighting, and I know at some point people make you think that now it's time to pick up arms and fight. Senzo Nkabinde, my brother from MK, myself and also him, with his voice notes, he has said many times, don't pick up arms, don't be provoked, don't be tempted. The elections are coming, do it on the ballot. He has said so many times, and I want to commend him for saying so. Because you know what the problem is. So whenever people meet me, they'll say, please ask them, so when they fight, what is the fight going to be? Are the Zulu people going to fight other tribes? Are the Zulu people going to fight the colonizers? Are the Zulu people going to fight among themselves when they pick up arms? Are the Zulu people going to dismantle Section 9 institutions? What is this form of a fight when they pick up arms? I don't have an answer. I hope you guys have an answer so you could answer them. I normally don't do these long monologues of speaking and then taking a lot of time, and I always drop it for less than 7 minutes. But because this one is a long one, and this, like the stuff that I say, I don't like to repeat myself, but it is important for me to explain further what I mean, so you don't misconstrue what I say. As a country, we cannot all see things similarly, and we cannot all behave in the same way. But I'm just glad at some point we learn that yes, you can disagree with someone without pulling out something and pointing it at him. Africa, I don't like democracy, but I live in it, so I hope you find a way of living with it as well. ANC is losing power, and those who voted against ANC, at least there's hope. I know Julius Malema talks about biting it bit by bit. My worry is ANC is losing power, DA is gaining. So where does DA gain, and where does DA get all these numbers? That's been my suspicion for a long time. But of course, there's a speaker. Let me see if I find the quote and put it here who says if democracy was really fair or could really change government, I don't know what the line says, the rich would not have allowed it or given it to the poor, something in that line. I'll see if I find it. And this is one of the reasons I don't believe in democracy, because it honestly doesn't change things. We participate in it because we don't have a choice. An absolute ruler, let me stop it here because it's a long video as well, because if I give you something, I'm going to have to take time to explain it and the video becomes long. Listen to what Professor Ndletyana says and please tell me what do you think about it. Mashiane politically incorrect. Thank you. Sure.
It is rejecting this outcome.
Well, they said they would get a 2/3 majority, which they didn't get. So they're trying to fabricate an excuse or an explanation as to why they didn't get it. The mere existence of this party, the fact that they've gotten this much support is a sad indication or indictment about our own country. Because this is purely based on ethnicity. I've had all the protestations. I mean, I've been following this thing for a while now. JZ's candidacy is built on ethnicity. And it started way back at Polokwane, for instance. You had folks from KZN singing Indlamu at Polokwane, embarrassing KZN leaders. They had to be told, right? His campaign, 100% Zulu boy, and the entire KZN leaders, for instance, would go around supporting JZ, saying it's now time to elect a Zulu person. And that's what they did with the ANC. And they continued to do that. When in 2009, when everybody else was saying JZ is bad news, KZN voted for JZ in huge numbers because he is one of their own. Right? Even today, he came to Orlando and spoke entirely in Zulu, right in the middle of Orlando, here in Soweto, because he was addressing his own fellow Zulu speakers, folks who used to live in the hostels here.
Professor Ndletyana,
yes.
Let me ask this. Is this not dangerous, though? Should we not be addressing this as a country to say, this is wrong? Because if we allow it, as you put it, and we commentate about it, it's not going to stand us in good stead, because we know what ethnic violence does. We only have to look at examples, not only ourselves, pre-1994, but you have to look at Kenya, which has given us recent examples of what post-election violence based on ethnicity does.
It is a bad thing, but we must make sure that our institutions function optimally. People must not lose faith in the government to a point where they trust individuals who are like them. Umzulu wageti, therefore he will care for us. No. Institutions must work properly. If they do that, then you kind of reduce the appeal of these messianic figures. But we must continue to talk about it. Refuse to be shut down by these demagogues. They want us to believe that what we are seeing is not real. It is real. JZ is a tribalist. His entire support is built on ethnicity. Ethnic support, vote for someone similar to you. They went to Nazareth, for instance, KZN leadership. They wouldn't vote for anyone other than a Zulu person, ANC people. So the ANC, today they're turning around, pretending to be surprised. They created this monstrosity, including Ogwede at Polokwane, when people were singing Zulu warrior songs at a national ANC conference. They supported him. They supported him throughout. So it's a monstrosity, unfortunately, that is coming to bite us, to bite all of us. But you are correct. We must talk about it. We must implement measures that undermine its appeal.
All right.
But it is certainly a danger.
Final question, Professor Ndletyana.
Yep.
And we've got to talk about the rejection of this election by a number of political parties, and among them, the MK party. Where to now, or what do you think should be done? Because some political observers have said this happens all the time after an election, but perhaps the difference here is that you have a party that has garnered a lot of support and has indeed done exceedingly well in this election. Yes, they're not in the majority, but they have done exceedingly well. And on top of it, they are led by a person who was recently a former head of state. Is there reason to worry when they are saying that they are demanding a recount? If not a recount, a revote. If that doesn't work, therefore there might be trouble. Do not stir trouble, as the former president put it late yesterday.
There are mistakes that will be made, but they've been corrected. Some of these IC stuff I knew, they get confused sometimes, but everybody's there, they can pick up all these mistakes. So the objections, the complaint at times are kind of fabricated. Fabricated because people want to increase their numbers through intimidation, threatening violence. The IC is the only body, we're a country of rules. We have a constitution. We have rules, we have all sorts of things that guide us on what to do on each and every aspect of our public life. And part of this includes IEC looking at these complaints and saying, well, there's nothing here. If the IEC says there's nothing here, then that goes, and the IEC must declare the elections. So whoever doesn't accept it, then it is his business, really, because the rules are there. They've been shown that there's nothing here. And so you would expect that sound-minded people would accept this. Of course, they may threaten all sorts of things. I mean, people do that because for some reason convince themselves that they are strong. But we're a country of laws. We do have legitimate law enforcement agencies. They must deal with this thing. If, for instance, there's some violence that comes up, there's this and that, we can't be intimidated into agreeing to things that are false. Right. We're a country of laws, and the laws must be enforced.
Professor Mcebisi Ndletyana, thank you very much for your time, political sciences professor at the University of Johannesburg.